Some would argue that this planet's rich cultures and languages give each of us our own unique identity. But looking around, from cities to nations to continents, our world is shaping up to be one big neighborhood. For one group of people, there is but only one identity and one trait, one voice and one truth, one heartbeat and one God. And uniting this ever-flourishing family is one gardener, one keeper, spreading the seeds of spirituality and watering all with God's grace. One man who walks day and night to every corner of the world to embrace every beloved soul and gather all of God's seeds. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V, the successor to the promised Messiah ﷺ, and source of the same light as the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now visiting the far east of our small world once again. Join us in this special series for the incredible journey of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih to the nations of Singapore and Australia, and let us bring you closer to the far side of the world. After his first blessed visit in 2006, this was the second time Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V was to tour the Far East. His first stop, Singapore, a wealthy, prosperous nation packed into a city. Combining the skyscrapers and subways of a modern, affluent city with a medley of Chinese, Malay and Indian influences and a tropical climate, this garden city is a microcosm of Asia. Hiding behind the mega financial structures is a humble world that still has its roots in a time bygone. It is in this world, in the Changi district, that the Ahmadiyya community has a small mosque which was to host thousands of Ahmadi Muslims for the arrival of their spiritual leader, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V. Hazur was received by the Singapore National Ahmadiyya Muslim Executive Council, as well as Umara and presidents of neighbouring countries at Changi Airport on the 22nd of September 2013. In the evening, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih made his way to Masjid Taha, and he was received by the local Jamaat. The next day and the days onwards, Hazur spent most of his time having personal meetings with the thousands of Ahmadi Muslims who had arrived from all countries in the region, including Thailand, Cambodia, Malaysia, Burma, India, Vietnam and Indonesia. This visit is a testament to the truth of Islam, that even tens of thousands of miles away, people who have completely different cultures and languages flock to their Khalifa and are united in one prayer and thought, just like every other Ahmadi Muslim around the world.
It is like a dream come true. You know, in Indonesia, when we get teaching from our Mubali, our Murabi, that this is true of faith, this is a real Islam, and this is the representative of Hazrat Rasulullah SAW. And then I also read the Man of God, etc. That I really, really want to meet this kind of Man of God. Yeah, I want to touch him, to express how that what was Hazrat Masih Maud tell to us, it is true about the sacrifice, about that, hey, if you become an Ahmadi, you will face this and that and hardship and etc. and blah, 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 something. And then, fortunately, I met the situation and I felt that, oh, what Hazrat Masih Maud taught us, it is true.
The most lucky in my life because I met the most beautiful man in the world, and I think also what is said righteous man, the most righteous man in the world. So at the time I meet him, I only want to cry.
How we see from their face, how they are happy. They're very, just like, their faith, their iman was fully charged. When we talk to them after meeting, they couldn't express with the word how they feel, how they really very, very happy.
This is actually beyond our expectation because we are planning for maybe around 1,500 tanam, or probably for the maximum 2,000. But I heard it's around 3,000 over that will be arriving for this Huzur visit this year.
अभी हम सब हुजूर अल्लाह ताला बिन अज़ीज़ से मुलाकात के लिए हम तकरीबन 40 अहबाब यहाँ तशरीफ़ लाए हैं। यहाँ हुजूर से कल मुलाकात भी हुई थी, तो अल्लाह ताला के फज़ल से बहुत खुश हुए कि हम लोग का जो ईमान भी ताज़ा हो गए। हुजूर के बहुत अरसा से हम लोगों को बेताब थे कि हुजूर से किसी तरह भी मुलाकात हो जाए।
The largest number of Ahmadi guests arrived from Indonesia, where Ahmadi Muslims have faced intense persecution for their faith. Ahmadi Muslims in Indonesia have been driven out of their homes, their mosques have been set on fire, many have been beaten, and some have even been martyred. Some of those who visited came from villages, with a few who had to sell their livestock and possessions just so they could pay for the journey to meet their Khalifa.
Generally, our activities are normal. Those who by law or those, the decree or whatever, they couldn't stop our activities. We still hold our jalsa. There is some restriction, especially in West Java. If it's not all West Java, but only certain regency. Alhamdulillah, our Jamaat is still progress.
Now, even though when we come, the situation not so good, but now because of the opposition from the Muslim in Cambodia, so our member they want to know why we are pray before. We are not pray 5 times, now we pray 5 times. Why they against us? Now before, this is the culture of Cambodia, they always begging, and now Jamaat come teach us to sacrifice. So we now doing according the Holy Quran say, like we have to spend our money in the cause of God.
I felt many blessings from God, many blessings that I cannot tell in words. Yeah, but maybe this is also what the other Ahmadi who felt persecution, etc. Yeah, maybe some other people, non-Ahmadi, said, "Oh, poor Ahmadi, you got hardship," or something. But for us, it is like an evidence of the truth, what Hazrat Masih Maud said to us. So of course, it is improve our faith to him also, and strengthen our belief to him. And inshallah, yeah, I will not let this faith go. Even the mullah or the friend, yeah, even they took our life, they took our children, they took our home, our school. Yeah, we will not let this faith go. Since that, I really feel that this is the real Islam. This is the real faith.
On the 26th of September, a special reception was held in honor of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, where he gave a historic keynote address on the true message of Islam to the people of Singapore. Before the address, Hazur held meetings with leading influential and political dignitaries, including Mr. Lee Koon Choi, a founding member of the ruling People's Action Party, who during a distinguished career also served as ambassador for Singapore in various countries. Hazur was also interviewed by representatives of Indonesia's national media. The main event was attended by over 100 influential political and non-government leaders, including foreign consul generals, faith leaders, press and members of the National Parliament of Singapore and neighbouring countries. During his keynote address, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad explained the basis for a just economy, the need for equity between nations, the misrepresentation of Islam, and his concerns at the increasing risk of a Third World War.
In the world, the people say what Islam is connected with violence. I think that's very wrong. So I'm very glad that a movement like yours will do something to correct this image that Islam means peace and harmony with other religions.
Islam teaches that all of these resources are the combined property and wealth of all mankind. Thus, all of these blessings are for all people, and so they should all derive benefit from them. The wealth of a nation should be used to ensure that every member of society has access to certain essential facilities. For example, Islam teaches that each and every child, no matter his or her background, should be provided a proper education so that they can develop into skilled and truly beneficial members of society. The world has come to resemble a global village. And so, if we fail to discharge each other's rights, then the unrest that has already taken root would ultimately lead to extremely dangerous and devastating consequences.
Tonight, I begin to listen to the real words of Islam, that is tolerance. At the present moment, we can have to see like too many hatred, too many things that are going on in this world, people killing each other. But if you understand the real teaching of Islam or any other religion for that matter, the fundamental is it is all about peace and harmony.
From what I'm hearing from this great man, is talking world peace, promoting peace, and this is what we all should be doing. And I really admire him for standing up and talking openly about it, and quoting from the great book of Quran. It really makes sense. As a non-Muslim, I am a Christian myself. Coming from Papua New Guinea, it is predominantly Christian. This is really in line with what we also preaching in the Holy Bible there. So it's really, they all make sense, and it's really very encouraging and for world peace.
I really thank God for this wonderful man of God, that he had the vision to really speak about peace for the world, and that is really the message that really touched my heart, as that is the message really that the people want to hear. And I believe that he's a person who had been called by God to preach this message of peace and to all mankind. So I believe that through this ministry, through this speech, many people will be able to embrace this unity even among other religions, that I believe religion doesn't talk about hatred, but peace. And I believe this movement, this religion, Ahmadiyya, is really talking about peace. And I'm so glad to hear that tonight.
The next day, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih delivered his Friday sermon from Masjid Taha in Singapore to the whole world. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih elegantly displayed true divine leadership, urging Muslims of Malaysia and Indonesia to self-reflect and ensure that they were living examples of true Islam, such that even their opponents cannot deny their commitment to true faith, rather than urging his community to rise up against their enemies or governments who have intensely persecuted them. Hazur urged members to place their faith in prayers and supplicate to their Lord, reminding Ahmadi Muslims that the community in Pakistan was at the receiving end of even harsher hostilities at the hands of mullahs.
हमारे मुखालफिन नहीं जानते कि अहमदियत वो हकीकी इस्लाम है जिसने अपनी जड़ें हमारे दिलों में लगाई हुई हैं, और कोई मुखालफत और कोई तेज़ आंधी हमारे ईमान की मजबूत जड़ों को हमसे जुदा नहीं कर सकती। अहमदी खुदा ताला के फ़ज़लों के नज़ारों को देख कर किस तरह अपने खुदा से किए हुए अहद से मुँह मोड़ सकता है, हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के आशिक़ सादिक़ से जुड़कर फिर किस तरह अपने बंधन को तोड़ सकता है। वो बंधन जिसने अल्लाह ताला और उसके रसूल सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के साथ बंधन को मज़ीद मजबूत कर दिया है, जिसने ईमान में तरक्की के वो रास्ते दिखाए हैं जिनसे गैर अहमदी मुसलमान ना आशना हैं। किसी शख्स की, किसी फ़िरके की, किसी मज़हब की, किसी हुकूमत की, किसी अदालत की अल्लाह ताला के लफ्ज़ पर उजारादारी नहीं है। बस हिकमत के साथ अपनी तबलीग के मैदान को वसी तर करते चले जाएँ, हर तबके में अहमदियत यानी हकीकी इस्लाम का पैगाम पहुँचाएँ। यहाँ मेरे सामने जो अहमदी बैठे हुए हैं, चाहे सिंगापुर के हों या किसी दूसरे मुल्क के, हमें याद रखना चाहिए कि चाहे हालात अच्छे हों या ख़राब, हम अहमदी मुसलमानों ने इस्लाम का असल चेहरा दुनिया को दिखाना है।
Immediately after the sermon, Hazur took Bai'at, or initiation, into Ahmadiyyat from a few new converts to Islam Ahmadiyyat. The Bai'at is a tradition dating from the time of the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is a pledge and affirmation of your faith, commitment and service to Islam and Khilafat under the 10 conditions of initiation set out by the promised Messiah alayhi salam. This was also an opportunity for all the members of the community to renew their pledge to Islam Ahmadiyyat through the leadership of Khilafat, a process which is incredibly spiritual and life-changing for many.
I entered this day the Ahmadiyya Jamaat in Islam at the hand of Masroor. O my Lord, my Allah, I wronged my soul and confess all my sins. Ameen.
The Ahmadiyya Muslim community spans the entire world through the blessings of Allah, and it has been through lifetime devotees called Waqfeen that people are guided and the community infrastructure remains strong and connected. These Waqfeen are from all walks of life. Some are missionaries spreading the message of Islam, others serve as imams and community leaders, and there are many more who serve their faith and the larger community in all fields. The fourth successor to the promised Messiah, ﷺ, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad Khalifatul Masih IV, rahmahullah, launched the Waqf-e-Nau scheme, where children are dedicated for Islam by their parents before birth. These children are then guided and nurtured to be servants of Islam, and it is then only through their own choice that they finally become Waqfeen. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih continuously oversees and assesses many of the Waqfeen in our children personally, and guides them towards positive goals for their future. For this purpose, he holds classes on his tours with Waqf-e-Nau of the region and guides them on all matters. Similarly, in Singapore also, many Waqf-e-Nau from Malaysia, Singapore and Indonesia attended the Waqf-e-Nau class with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and received guidance from him. classes were held for both boys and girls separately.
He has completed his medicine. I asked them to make a clinic or hospital in Indonesia, so he served there for the Jamaat. Jamaat will open a clinic, so he will serve there. Or I will send him to Africa, but where can I send you? The thing is that those who have attained the age of 15 should feel the bond that they want to continue their waqf. All right? And then continue with your, and let the center know that what type of education you are getting, right? So that we are well aware of your your record, that how your progress is, right?
Hazur's trip to Singapore and the arrival of thousands of Indonesian Ahmadi Muslims to meet Hazrat Khalifatul Masih brought considerable attention of the Indonesian press, many of whom who had not been properly informed on the beliefs and practices of Islam Ahmadiyyat. The reception held earlier in Singapore had caused a lot of interest in the Indonesian press, and thus on the 28th of September, Hazur had a special audience with more than 20 non-Ahmadi Indonesian guests representing various media, educational institutions and think tanks at the Taha Mosque in Singapore. During the 70-minute question and answer session, Hazur explained the true teachings of Islam and clarified various misconceptions concerning the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat.
What do you think about the Khalifat system, that it's supposed to be like that's for the whole Muslim, or actually you agree that there are many kind of Islamic group or Islamic
You
sect
see,
that you have to
this was the prophecy of the Holy Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the time would come when Islam will split, or Muslim Ummah will split into 72 sects, or rather 73 sects. So now that the prophecy of the Holy Prophet ﷺ has been fulfilled, and the 73rd sect will be of the Prophet Messiah ﷺ, right? Then he will bring all the Muslims to one hand. So this is why we, Ahmadiyya Jamaat, is now spread almost in 204 countries of the world. We are in the Middle East, in the Muslim world, as in Indonesia, in Pakistan, in India, Africa, Europe, and the people are coming gradually towards Ahmadiyya. And quite a good number of Muslims are joining Ahmadiyya, from among Shiites, from Sunnis, from Wahhabis, from Brahmins, and so other sects. So this will now make one sect. Not that every sect will have their own Khalifa. Khalifa will be only one. You see, these Indonesians, they joined Ahmadiyya. They were Sunnis before, or they were following those traditions or that ideology which was taught to them by their clerics and mullahs. Right? But now they are Ahmadis. So we don't say any of them is wrong, but we say if you want to progress, you have to come to one hand and follow one leadership. And that was prophesied by the Holy Prophet ﷺ.
Ahmadi need new vision, interpretation about revelation, about prophet.
This question was also asked to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and it is mentioned in the Quran. And Kuffar says, you just your vision and then we shall accept some of your views. Why should, if we believe that it is from Allah, then why should we change? For last 25 years we are sacrificing. We have lost number of lives. And we are stick to it because the belief we hold is from Allah. So if we do it, it means we have more fear of people than Allah. We fear Allah more than people. This is why we cannot change. We have to spread our message. You see? And you see, and 125 years ago, it was only one man. And now when he died, he was almost 500,000. And now every year we are getting more than 500,000 people joining Ahmadiyyat. And now we are more than 100 million or 150 million. So why should we fear?
Hazur's blessed visit to Singapore was at its end. On the 30th of September, Hazur departed from Singapore. Before his departure, Hazur bade farewell to the hundreds of Ahmadis who had gathered at Taha Mosque. On the far corner of the world lies a large piece of land that had been cut off from the rest of the land masses thousands of years ago. Today it has been transformed into an oasis of concrete. 5,000 miles away from the birth of Ahmadiyyat, even this country received the blessings of Ahmadiyyat as early as 1903 through the acceptance of Ahmadiyyat by Hazrat Sufi Musa Hassan Khan Sahib. Since then, the community has grown and centres have been established all over Australia, with the headquarters being in Sydney at Masjid Huda. Hazur arrived at Sydney Airport on the 1st of October and was welcomed by the National President of the community and Member of Parliament, the Honourable Kevin Connolly. This was the fourth visit of a Khalifatul Masih to Australia. Hazur was welcomed to Masjid Huda by over 600 Ahmadi men, women and children who had been waiting patiently since sunrise for Hazur's arrival. Join us next week for the next episode, where we'll bring you highlights of the Jalsa Salana Australia, interviews of Hazur with ABC Network, and the historic reception address in Melbourne, as well as highlights of Eid and the foundation stone ceremony for a new guest house in Sydney at Masjid Huda. Some would argue that this planet's rich cultures and languages give each of us our own unique identity. But looking around, from cities to nations to continents, our world is shaping up to be one big neighborhood. For one group of people, there is but only one identity and one trait, one voice and one truth, one heartbeat and one God. And uniting this ever-flourishing family is one gardener, one keeper, spreading the seeds of spirituality and watering all with God's grace. One man who walks day and night to every corner of the world to embrace every beloved soul and gather all of God's seeds. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V, the successor to the promised Messiah ﷺ, and source of the same light as the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now visiting the far east of our small world once again. Join us in this special series for the incredible journey of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih to the nations of Singapore and Australia, and let us bring you closer to the far side of the world. In the previous episode, we took you to Singapore with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and brought you the incredible stories of Ahmadi Muslims in East Asia and Hazur's arrival in Sydney, his second trip to Australia so far. The Australian Ahmadiyya community is one of the earliest international communities established outside of India. Hazrat Musa Hassan Khan Sahib was the first Australian to enter the fold of Ahmadiyyat in 1903. The community has grown since then, establishing centres across Australia and becoming an integral part of Australian society. The first Ahmadiyya mosque in Australia was set up in Sydney, called the Badal Huda Mosque, which was to serve as the headquarters for the community. Unlike many international leaders, Hazur spent many of his days in Australia, personally meeting over 3,000 members of the community. The arrival of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih in Australia was the perfect opportunity to hold one of the key events in the Ahmadiyya calendar, the National Annual Convention, otherwise known as the Jalsa Salana. The convention was to be attended by more than 4,000 members of the community from in and around Australia, and it was to last 3 days. Prior to the Jalsa, Hazur inspected the infrastructure and organizational setups for the Jalsa on the 6th of October, with key attention paid to the welfare and care of the guests who were to come from far. The promised Messiah ﷺ has laid incredible importance on the good care of guests. In the early days of Ahmadiyyat, the promised Messiah ﷺ would at times care for the guests himself, sacrificing his own comforts for the sake of his guests. Following suit, Hazur inspected all aspects of Jalsa preparations and officially inaugurated the Jalsa and addressed the workers and volunteers directly, and advised them to conduct their respective duties with kindness and compassion. Hazur said that no task ought to be considered insignificant or ordinary, rather each and every assigned duty was of importance. Hazur said that as those who attended the Jalsa were deemed as guests of the promised Messiah ﷺ, they should all be treated in the best possible manner. Hazur said that non-Ahmadi guests were always impressed by the high moral standards and service of Ahmadis. Hazur addressed the gatherings at Badal Huda Mosque on all 3 days, starting with inaugural prayers and the raising of the Lawai Ahmadiyyat and the Australian national flag. The first address was on Friday the 4th of October, where Hazur said that the first small Jalsa that took place just 123 years ago in the small little hamlet of Qadian is today being held in all the continents of the world. It's being held in a faraway continent like Australia, which is thousands of miles away from Qadian, and thousands of men, women and children are participating in it. Hazur said that this same Jalsa, almost 1 month ago, was held with great majesty in the capital city of that country which governed over India for a very long period of time. Today, the officers and leaders of that country, and even the priests of that country, could not remain content without declaring that the message of Ahmadiyya Jamaat is the message of gathering people together, and that this message is the message of love, affection and brotherhood, and that this message needs to be spread throughout the world.
अब अहमदी होने के बाद इन बातों और इन चीज़ों और उन तौक़ुआत की तलाश की ज़रूरत है जो हज़रत मसीह मौऊद अलैहिस्सलाम ने हमसे की हैं। ये जलसे के 3 दिन क्योंकि इज्तिमाई तौर पर रूहानी माहौल के दिन हैं, इसलिए इन दिनों में ख़ास तौर पर तलाश करके और यहाँ के प्रोग्रामों से फ़ायदा उठाकर हमें एक हकीकी अहमदी बनने की कोशिश करने की ज़रूरत है।
On Saturday, 5th of October, Hazur made another address, this time to Lajna members of the community, reminding both men and women of their duties towards each other, their children and their faith, and how all should live their lives in a manner which portrays the best example for others.
अगर तकवा हो तो कभी मसाइल इतने न बढ़ें जितने अब बढ़ रहे हैं। लड़के भी माहौल के बाद असर से बचने की कोशिश करेंगे जब नेक लड़की की तलाश में होंगे, तो फिर लड़कों को खुद भी नेकी की तरफ माइल होना होगा। ये नहीं हो सकता कि लड़के तो आवारागर्दी में मुब्तला हों और नेक लड़कियों की तलाश हो। खुद भी जब नेक लड़की की तलाश होगी तो तकवा पर चलना होगा। लड़कियां भी जब ये देखेंगी कि हमारे रिश्तों की बुनियाद नेकियों पर है, तो फिर वो अपनी दुनियावी ख्वाहिशात के बजाय, अपने गैर ज़रूरी फ़ैशनों के बजाय, एक हद तक फ़ैशन भी जायज़ है, लिबास की खूबसूरती भी जायज़ है, श्रृंगार भी जायज़ है, लेकिन जब ये हद से ज़्यादा बढ़ जाए तो वो ये फिर तकवा से दूर हटा के ले जाता है। तो जब लड़कियों को भी पता होगा कि हमारे रिश्तों के मयार क्या हैं, तो वो ज़ाहिर है वो नेकियों पे कायम होंगी। तो ये दो तरफ़ा अमल है, लड़कियों को भी नेकियों के कदम मारने होंगे और लड़कों को भी।
Hazur made his concluding address to the Jalsa Salana of Australia to more than 4,000 guests on Sunday the 6th of October, where he spoke of jihad in the modern day. Hazur said that we firmly believe in jihad, however the type of jihad required in the modern era has changed. At this time, no government or organization is physically attacking Islam in the name of religion. If Islam is being attacked today, it is not by the sword, but through the press, through the media and through preaching. And so it is the need of the time that we respond using the very same means. That is what the promised Messiah ﷺ taught, to fight with our pens and not with our swords.
पर ये वाज़ेह होना चाहिए कि इस्लाम की तरक्की अब खिलाफत के साथ वाबस्ता है, ना कि किसी मौलवी और किसी ग्रोह या किसी हुकूमत के साथ। बस यही वजह है कि आज अल्लाह ताला ने जमात अहमदिया को दुनिया का रहनुमा बनाया है, जो हकीकी इस्लाम पेश कर रही है, जो ख़ातमुल खुलफ़ा के बाद अल्लाह ताला के वादे के पूरा होने की शर्त को पूरा होते देख रही है, जो इनफरादी और इज्तिमाई इबादतों में भी तरक्की कर रही है और रूहानी और माली कुर्बानियों में भी आगे बढ़ रही है, माली और जानी कुर्बानियों में भी आगे बढ़ रही है और इताअत के आला नमूने भी दिखा रही है। अल्लाह ताला ने हज़रत मसीह अलैहिस्सलाम से जो वादा फरमाया था, उसकी शर्तें पूरी करने वाले तो पैदा होते रहेंगे इंशाअल्लाह ताला। हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने जो पेशगोई फरमाई थी वो तो पूरी होगी इंशाअल्लाह ताला, लेकिन हर अहमदी को ये फ़िक्र भी होनी चाहिए कि वो और उसकी नस्लें कहीं इस शर्त को पूरा ना करके इनाम से महरूम ना हो जाएं।
After the concluding session, Hazur held the Bai'at ceremony or initiation into Islam Ahmadiyya. The Bai'at is a tradition dating from the time of the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is a pledge and affirmation of your faith, commitment and service to Islam and Khilafat under the 10 conditions of initiation set out by the promised Messiah alayhi salam. This was also an opportunity for all the members of the community to renew their pledge to Islam Ahmadiyya through the leadership of Khilafat, a process which is incredibly spiritual and life-changing for many. Thousands in Australia and millions around the world watching live on their TVs participated in the Bai'at ceremony. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community spans the entire world through the blessings of Allah, and it has been through the lifetime devotees called Waqfeen that people are guided and the community infrastructure remains strong and connected. These Waqfeen are from all walks of life. Some are missionaries spreading the message of Islam, others serve as imams and community leaders, and there are many more who serve their faith and the larger community in all fields. The fourth successor to the promised Messiah, Hazrat Mirza Tahir Ahmad Khalifatul Masih IV Rahimahullah, launched the Waqf-e-Nau scheme, where children are dedicated for Islam by their parents before birth. These children are then guided and nurtured to be servants of Islam, and it is then only through their own choice that they finally become Waqfeen. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih continuously oversees and assesses many of the Waqf Noah children personally and guides them towards positive goals for their future. For this purpose, he holds classes on his tours with Waqf Noah of the region and guides them on all matters. Similarly, in Sydney also, many Waqf Noah from across Australia attended the Waqf Noah class with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and received guidance from him.
Thousands of Ahmadiyya Muslims have been coming to this mosque in Western Sydney over the past few days to catch a glimpse of the man they believe to be the Muslim equivalent of the Pope.
The arrival of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih in Australia brought considerable interest from the local and national press and media. A few reporters had the opportunity to interview Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, including Bill Bertolds from the National Australian Broadcasting Corporation, who interviewed Hazur for ABC TV and radio. Speaking to ABC, Hazur said that wherever he has the chance, he will extend Islam's message of love and peace throughout the society and across the country. The truth is that the state of the world today is extremely dangerous, and so we must take steps towards peace, otherwise the consequences could be disastrous.
I'd like to ask you some questions about the Muslim community over here, particularly here in Western Sydney. As you'd be aware, it's a very multicultural area. There's a fairly large Muslim community. Do you think there are particular challenges for Muslim communities living in Western societies, such as Australia?
You see, if Muslims are practicing true Islam, then there should not be any challenge in absorbing, adjusting, and living in any of the society, whether it is Western or Eastern. In a short sentence, we have made a slogan of the teachings of Islam, that is love for all and hatred for none. And if that message is there, and as I have already said, the love of your country is part of your faith, both these messages are such, or the slogans are such, that I don't feel that we have any problem in adjusting ourselves in any of the society, whether it's Western or Eastern or whatever it is. We are law-abiding. We want, you see, we believe that Allah is not only for Muslims. Allah is Allah for the whole universe. And especially Allah likes His creation. Allah loves His creation. And wherever the rights of His creation are being denied, Allah is not happy with that. So, when you are discharging the rights towards your fellow being and you want to live peacefully in the society, you spread the message of love and harmony, I don't think there should be any problem in adjusting Muslims into the society.
Soon after the Jalsa, Hazrat Amirul Mumineen set his attention on the youth of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Australia. The community lays incredible importance on the right upbringing of children, and education is an integral part of this. For this purpose, there are Ahmadiyya Muslim student associations around the world that endeavor for the general educational uplift of men, women, boys and girls to pursue higher education and to provide them guidance on careers and research. The Students' Association plays an incredible role in providing all the support each student needs to pursue higher education for better service of their country. Hazur sat down and gave considerable time to both men and women. PhD and research students gave presentations on their topics of study. Hazur gave other students the opportunity to ask questions and inquired from many others on their educational pursuits and gave his guidance. The Holy Prophet of Islam ﷺ gave immense importance to education, and the Quran has made it compulsory for all men and women, young and old. In today's world of economic and political turmoil, the example of the Khalifa of Islam is unparalleled and unseen. Here is an international spiritual leader who not only has genuine concern for the education of all the members of the community, but is actively involved with all student associations around the world and constantly urges students to reach the highest stations of professionalism in all fields. On the 9th of October, Hazur was to depart for his first visit to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Melbourne. After a brief flight, Hazur arrived in Melbourne and was received by the local Ahmadiyya Muslim community president before departing for the Ahmadiyya Centre. Melbourne is Australia's second largest city and the cultural capital of Australia. The Ahmadiyya Centre in Melbourne was purchased in 2010 and was previously a theme park. The only standing structure remaining at the grounds was the function hall, which is now the Ahmadiyya Centre, which has the capacity for over 2,000 people. Upon Huzur's arrival, hundreds of Ahmadi men, women and children lined the driveway and welcomed Huzur onto his first visit to Melbourne. After arrival, Huzur led the Zohar and Asr prayers. Apart from his other activities, Huzur met personally with many families and individuals from Melbourne. On the 11th of October, Huzur officially inaugurated the Ahmadiyya Centre in Melbourne and delivered the Friday sermon where he said that those of us who claim to be in the bath of the promised Messiah ﷺ need to self-analyze as to how much are we fulfilling the objective of his advent. He said that faith is strengthened by perfect belief in God, but there is too much reliance on worldly resources. Today, reliance on God has become secondary while the importance of worldly people and worldly matters have become foremost. If we have not recognized the being of God as it is due even after taking bath, then it is of no value to call ourselves Ahmadi. If we today please our worldly masters more than God, then we do not fulfill the objective of the advent of the promised Messiah ﷺ.
फिर फरमाया कि इताअत के मयार हासिल करो। इताअत ये नहीं कि खलीफा वक्त के या निज़ाम जमात के फ़ैसले जो अपनी मर्ज़ी के हुए दिली खुशी से कबूल कर लिए, और जो अपनी मर्ज़ी के ना हुए उसमें कई किस्म की तावीलें पेश करनी शुरू कर दी, उसमें एतराज़ करने शुरू कर दिए। फरमाया कि ये बैत का दावा अगर है तो फिर इताअत भी कामिल होनी चाहिए। बस ये बैत का दावा, एतकाद का दावा, मुरीदी का दावा और इस हकीकी इस्लाम पर अमल करने का दावा या मुसलमान होने का दावा तभी हकीकी दावा है जब ये ऐलान हो कि आज बैत करने के बाद मेरा सब कुछ नहीं रहा, बल्कि सब कुछ खुदा ताला का है और इसके दीन के लिए है। और यही बैत का मकसद है कि अपने आप को बेच देना।
The same day, a reception was held in Huzur's honor where he delivered a keynote address to a gathering of more than 100 distinguished guests. Before the event, a few officials had the honor of meeting Huzur, including Major General Paul McClackham, the senior-ranking military officer in Victoria, the Honourable Anthony Byrne, and the Honourable Judith Grayling. The event was attended by more than 150 distinguished guests, which included interfaith leaders, professors, charities, community and military leaders, and government officials, including many members of the state and federal government, as well as members of the National Parliament, some of whom spoke at the event before Huzur's keynote address.
I welcome you to our beautiful country, Australia, and I hope that you enjoy your stay. 5 years on, our relationship is still going strong, and here we are today, celebrating this very special day and continuing to spread your beautiful message, love for all and hatred for none. If only every person on earth lived their life this way, there would be no war, only peace.
That message, that strong message that comes from your community, that comes from your religious beliefs, of love for all and hatred for none was something that resonated not only with my soul, but also with my head. And like the Mayor, I only wish that more people could take that message with them and live by it and spread it. So I'm very pleased to welcome you on behalf of every member of the local community here tonight.
We are particularly impressed with the members of the community in our area and our region who reach out to us in a spirit of your faith and a spirit of your teaching and your preachings to reach out to extend their hand in faith to us so that we can come together to create a meaningful dialogue, a dialogue that will result in deeper understanding. And if I can use, Your Holiness, the example of your local community, the work that they do in trying to reach out to us and the works that they do to benefit of the community in keeping with your teachings do great credit to you and to the people that follow your faith.
And so to be associated with, of course, your religion, especially your emphasis on love for all and, of course, hatred for none is something that is integral to the success of our society and success of humanity. So welcome to Australia. We're delighted to be able to be a part of this reception. And, of course, I'd like to extend the greetings of the Premier, who also is unable to be here today. And on behalf of the State Government, I'm delighted to be here in his stead. Thank you very much.
The key themes espoused by His Holiness in many of his addresses, those of religious tolerance, loyalty to country, rejection of extremism, rebellion, disorder, commitment to community and the pursuance of peace, they resonate with the key values of the Australian military and all true Australians. I honour the sacrifices and risks you take to bring these messages to the world, and thank you for your gracious visit to our country.
During his address, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih analysed in detail the major threats to modern-day world peace, including the so-called Arab Spring, and spoke of his serious concern that the world was increasingly at the precipice of a horrific Third World War.
Here I would like to point out that this golden principle given by the Quran is not only for Muslims, but in fact it is a universal truth that in order to establish peace, justice must prevail. Unfortunately, when in the name of bringing peace, major powers interfere in the matters of other countries, they do not uphold the requirements of justice to the necessary degree or in minute detail. During a visit to the United States, I also addressed their senior politicians and policymakers. I clearly said to them that any act or policy they undertake to try and develop peace would never prove successful until all personal interests were set aside and until the requirements of justice were upheld in an entirely selfless manner.
I loved it. I can see why he's a leader of world peace, because he said exactly what I wanted to hear, and he touched on the countries and the problems of the world, and I can see why he is getting on with the heads of governments of other countries, and I wish all Islam leaders were like that, and we wouldn't have any trouble in the world.
It was an absolute honour for me to meet His Holiness. Truly, the values that the Ahmadi culture actually preaches are very, very close to our own. The love for all, hatred for none is a fantastic message, and it's something that the entire community should embrace.
Well, I thought his speech was very challenging, and I thought it was very important for us to be confronted with issues of the lack of justice in our world and the real importance of getting all people together to work together. There's not some people good, some people bad. We must always work together. I thought that was the message that I took out of what he was saying.
It seems like after seeing His Holiness that there's been a special seed of peace sown in Melbourne. What His Holiness spoke about as far as Syria is concerned is of world importance, and fortunately there's someone like him to say it to world leaders, to politicians, to get their attention, because someone has to get their attention, and he lives it. It's inspirational.
I actually had an opportunity to go up to him and have a little chat with him. I asked a specific question about interfaith and peace building, and what he told me was very inspiring. Do you want to know what he told me? He said, peace begins with you. Peace begins at home. If you have peace in you, it means that you are projecting peace. And if every one of us had peace, it means that we'll be projecting peace to each other. That was very fundamental. That was very key to me.
Just like Sydney, Hazur also held Waqf classes for boys and girls in Melbourne. Earlier the same day, Hazur visited a few landmarks around Melbourne, including the sky-high view 2,000 feet above sea level from Mount Dandenong. Later in the evening, Hazur visited a bird park in the Dandenong Ranges, where he enjoyed feeding parrots and sulphur-crested cockatoos. These birds are naturally curious and very intelligent, and so are not shy to perch on shoulders and eat from hands. In the wild, when these birds feed on the ground, there is always one bird perched high on a tree, keeping a lookout for predators. In the wild, these birds can live up to 40 years. Some birds have even lived up to 70 years in captivity. The next day, Hazur held classes with students from Melbourne and advised them on various matters concerning their education. Hazur's blessed tour of Melbourne had come to a close, and on Monday the 14th of October, Hazur departed for Sydney. The Melbourne community gathered outside the Ahmadiyya Centre on a rainy morning to bid farewell to their Khalifa. Join us next week as we bring you more press coverage of Hazur's tour.
As leader of the Ahmadiyya, you've spent a lot of time promoting interfaith dialogue with followers of other streams of Islam. Has your work been successful?
The historic reception held in Hazur's honour in Sydney.
Peace is Islam, and he's carrying the message of Islam to Australia in a way that no others have done. And it was just a beautiful message to convey to the wider Australian society.
And Hazur's visit to Brisbane. If you wish to catch up on any missed episodes, please go to www.ondemand.mta.tv to catch all episodes, as well as other MTA programs on your PC, tablet or smartphone. Some would argue that this planet's rich cultures and languages give each of us our own unique identity. But looking around, from cities to nations to continents, our world is shaping up to be one big neighborhood. For one group of people, there is but only one identity and one trait, one voice and one truth, one heartbeat and one God. And uniting this ever-flourishing family is one gardener, one keeper, spreading the seeds of spirituality and watering all with God's grace. one man who walks day and night to every corner of the world to embrace every beloved soul and gather all of God's seeds. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V, the successor to the promised Messiah ﷺ, and source of the same light as the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now visiting the far east of our small world once again. Join us in this special series for the incredible journey of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih to the nations of Singapore and Australia, and let us bring you closer to the far side of the world. In the previous episode, we took you to Australia with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and brought you the historic Jalsa Salana, classes held by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih with Waqf Nawan students, the first ever visit made by a Khalifa to Melbourne, including the reception and Friday sermon and press coverage of Hazur's visit. Hazur's return to Sydney happened at a very unique and blessed time for the Ahmadiyya Muslim community of Australia. On the 16th of October, the Eid al-Adha prayers were offered for the second time by a Khalifatul Masih in Australia at Bat al-Huda Mosque. The day of Eid is a day of prayer and celebration for all Muslims. The Eid al-Adha is offered on the last day of Hajj, and it is a reminder of the sacrifices we must make for God and our fellow beings. Hazur first led the Eid prayer and then addressed nearly 2,000 people gathered at Bat al-Huda Mosque. Hazur praised the sacrifices of the Prophet Abraham and his family. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih said that true Muslims should learn from their pious examples. He said that the slaughter of animals performed by Muslims on Eid would only prove to be of value if conducted with a pure desire to attain God's nearness.
बस हमें याद रखना चाहिए कि तकवा के बगैर ना इबादतें काम की हैं, ना कुर्बानियाँ काम की। इस रूह को हमें अपने अंदर पैदा करने की ज़रूरत है। तमाम अहकामात पर गौर करके फिर उन पर अमल करने की कोशिश करनी होगी। तो अल्लाह ताला फरमाता है, अगर ये होगा तो तुम्हारी कुर्बानियाँ भी कबूल होंगी। बस इस ईद को भी हमें वो ईद बनाने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए जिसकी बुनियाद तकवा पर हो। उन मोहसिनीन में शामिल होने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए जिनको अल्लाह ताला बिशारत देता है, जिनकी झोलियों को अपने इनामात से भरता है। हमें याद रखना चाहिए कि कुर्बानी या नेकी या मोहसिनीन में शुमार होना एक दिन का काम नहीं है।
ईद मुबारक ईद, ईद मुबारक ईद, मुबारक ईद की खुशियाँ जहाने अहमदियत को, इमामे असर दौरा को, गुलामाने खिलाफत को।
The spiritual leader of the global Ahmadiyya community, Mirza Masroor Ahmad, is currently visiting Australia for the first time since 2006.
Following Hazur's previous interviews by the press, radio and ABC News 24, ABC Asia Pacific Current Affairs program, Newsline, did a special 5-minute interview with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, which was broadcast to the entire Asia Pacific region, with viewership in the millions. In the interview, Hazur was questioned on his continued efforts of spreading the message of peace to many world leaders and the continued acts of violence and hatred perpetrated against the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in some parts of the world. Hazur said that the message of Islam as laid out by the community is being widely accepted around the world due to its truthful and peaceful teachings. Speaking of the persecution of Ahmadis in Pakistan and Indonesia, Hazur said that it is the duty of the government to protect all its citizens and treat everyone equally. Hazur said that no government has the right to interfere in any person's faith, and that inshallah there will come a day when Ahmadi Muslims will be able to practice their faith freely in every part of the world.
As leader of the Ahmadiyya, you've spent a lot of time promoting interfaith dialogue with followers of other streams of Islam. Has your work been successful?
We have been trying. And as far as interfaith dialogues are concerned, it is, we are being widely accepted everywhere. And our motto, love for all and hatred for none, is liked everywhere by even whether it is a religious group or a political group or any worldly organization. So this is the true picture of Islam. Islam means peace and love and harmony, reconciliation. And that is the true message. Whenever we take this message, wherever we take this message, it is liked everywhere, and it is working.
Mirza Masroor Ahmad, thank you very much for your time.
On the 18th of October, Huzoor delivered the Friday sermon from Battle Huda Mosque in Sydney and instructed the community to become the best of people in terms of good deeds and practices. Huzoor said that the best people are those who avoid all evil themselves and also advise others to do so in order to avoid God's displeasure. They are also called best people because their faith is strong and they uphold the belief that God watches over everything. They uphold the belief that material lords cannot meet our needs. Rather, the Lord of all the worlds is the one who listens to prayers. The world should also be told that permanence is in paying heed to and abiding by what God commands.
इस ज़माने में जबकि जैसा कि मैंने मिसालें भी दी हैं, बहुत सी बातें ऐसी हैं जो अल्लाह ताला की नाराज़गी की तरफ ले जाती हैं. उनका सही इस्तेमाल बुरा नहीं है, लेकिन इसका गलत इस्तेमाल बुराइयों के फैलाने, गलास्तों के फैलाने, गुनाहों के फैलाने का बहुत बड़ा ज़रिया बना हुआ है. लेकिन यही चीज़ें नेकियों के फैलाने का भी ज़रिया है. टीवी है, मालूमाती और इल्मी बातें बताता है, लेकिन बेहयाइयाँ भी इसकी वजह से आम हैं. इस ज़माने में टीवी का सबसे बेहतर इस्तेमाल तो हम अहमदी कर रहे हैं, या जमात अहमदिया कर रही है. मैंने जलसे के दिनों में भी तवज्जो दिलाई थी और उसका बाज़ लोगों पे असर भी हुआ, और उन्होंने मुझे कहा कि पहले हम MTA नहीं देखा करते थे, अब आपके कहने पर, तवज्जो दिलाने पर हमने MTA देखना शुरू किया है. तो अफसोस करते हैं कि पहले क्यों ना इसको देखा, क्यों ना हम इसके साथ जुड़े. बाज़ों ने ये इजहार किया कि हफ्ते 10 दिन में ही हमारे अंदर रूहानी और इल्मी मयार में इजाफा हुआ है.
The same evening, a historic reception was held in the Centenary Khilafat Hall at Battle Huda Mosque in honor of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, an event which was attended by more than 300 highly influential dignitaries, including members of the Senate and State, and federal government officials including party leaders, mayors, members of parliament, and police officials. Other guests included faith leaders, charities, and local neighbors. Prior to the event, Huzoor officially inaugurated the Khilafat Centenary Hall. Before Huzoor's keynote address, a number of dignitaries spoke.
The Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, is unable to attend today and has asked me to pass on his best wishes. It is wonderful once again to welcome Your Holiness to Australia. Your distinguished service as an eminent and spiritual Muslim leader is highly regarded, and today it is truly a great honour for your community that you are inaugurating the Caliphate Centenary Hall.
Now, I will read the following message by the Honourable Barry O'Farrell, and it says, I'm delighted to welcome Your Holiness here to the New South Wales community. It is an honour for us to receive a visit from such a venerable spiritual leader. I'm aware of your commitment to achieving world peace and interreligious harmony. I'm sure your visit will strengthen the harmony we already enjoy in New South Wales. Your many followers living in this state are assured of protection and support as they meet their religious obligations based on the Ahmadiyyan beliefs. Best wishes for a happy and successful visit to New South Wales. Signed, the Premier of New South Wales, Barry O'Farrell.
For the current bushfire emergency and for the support in need in yesterday's hostile conditions, I will request Minister Victor Dominello, on behalf of the Premier Fire Appeal, to accept a small cheque of $20,000 from His Holiness, please.
Your Holiness, it is an absolute honour and a privilege to share time with you, particularly your message I'm looking forward to that you will deliver here tonight. But having heard your words of wisdom over the time, we are privileged to have someone who walks the world stage with a very powerful message of faith and peace. In particular, at a time around the world where we see some people seek to use religion as an extreme means to place fear in the hearts of many, it is an absolute privilege to have you here, someone who preaches the need for peace, to have a leader, a religious leader, who is so well regarded by this community here, but right across the globe, who is prepared to stand up and talk about the necessities for peace. Your Holiness, we need more leaders like you. We need more leaders of communities like this community who are prepared to stand up and speak the word of faith and, more importantly, speak the words of peace. Because it is only through voices like yours that we will have stability once more across the globe. That when people are confident that their religious leaders, their political leaders are prepared to stand up and speak out. Speak out when others seek to terrorise the world, that you are that voice of peace, that you are that voice of hope and that voice of strength, that strength of faith and that voice of courage.
And Your Holiness, can I say to you, can I assure you that here in Australia you are among friends. You are among friends in this nation. And we know the Ahmadiyyan, we know that the Ahmadiyyan Muslim community are a righteous people and a good people and a godly people, loyal Australians and hard-working Australians. And in their heart and in their soul, they have a love of good because they have a love of God. And the God that the Ahmadiyyan community worship is the God that I as a Christian worship, the one God, the only God, the God who always was, is now and forever shall be. That's the God that the Ahmadiyyan community worship, as do I. And Your Holiness, your illustrious reputation has preceded you here to Australia. Your stand around the world for interreligious harmony and tolerance and peace. And for these things, for this great task that you've undertaken, we praise you and we honour you and we exalt you here tonight, all these members of Parliament and all the other dignitaries as well.
In his keynote address, Huzoor spoke about the misrepresentation of Islam in today's world. He spoke about the objectives of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and he spoke once again about his grave concerns that the world was heading towards a devastating global war. His Holiness also offered his personal sympathies to the people of New South Wales over the raging bushfires that were causing huge damage to parts of the state.
Those amongst you have an influence on the major powers of the world, or who can convey this message to those who have access to the corridors of powers, should urgently fulfill their responsibilities. Do not consider the problems and conflicts of today's world to be minor or insignificant, but instead strive your utmost and make every possible effort to establish peace. Perhaps some amongst you will not agree with me, with my analysis. However, it is when a person believes that his own strengths, his intellect, and those around him are all powerful that he walks on a path paved with danger. It is at that point where a person becomes blind to the existence of God and to his power, that Almighty God's decree sets into motion. Remember, man cannot escape the results of his actions, and so will have to suffer the consequences of the cruelties and disorders he has perpetrated.
Unfortunately, we hear and see right around the globe messages of war and terror and so forth. That is not reflective or representative of Islam. This is representative and reflective of Islam. So I was delighted to be here. Peace is Islam, and he's carrying the message of Islam to Australia in a way that no others have done. And it was just a beautiful message to convey to the wider Australian society.
To listen to a leader who walks the world stage talking about the importance of tolerance, of faith and peace. We need more leaders like that now on the world stage talking about these issues, because far too often we see conflict emerge, we see extremism, and we see that conflict turn to war. What we need are leaders who are prepared to make their voices for peace, and His Holiness is somebody who does that so well.
It's absolutely magnificent to be able to hear the true message of Islam as distinct from sometimes the aberrations that are put out there, and the peaceful messages that are coming across, and the genuine love of the people that are here for each other and for this country, Australia, and for life itself, is just a real topping up, and the feeling of goodwill makes you always leave these meetings with a feeling that all is really good in the world, and that there are people working hard to ensure that we will ultimately bring about a peace for everyone, and we will be brothers and sisters working together for the good of mankind. If anyone doubts it, I invite them to come to a meeting and listen to the genuine speech and feel the fellowship and the genuine love for each other that's here, and they will go away changed.
The Australian lands spread far and wide, with a range of cultures and religions living together. After the establishment of the first mosque almost 30 years ago, another mosque had been built, this time in Brisbane. On the 22nd of October, Huzoor departed for Brisbane. After a short flight, Huzoor was received in Brisbane and travelled to the newly built Baitul Masroor Mosque, where he was received by more than 200 members of the Jamaat. This was the second time Hazrat Khalifatul Masih had visited Brisbane. The Baitul Masroor Mosque has been built in a year and has the capacity for over 2,000 people. On Friday the 25th of October, Huzoor officially inaugurated the mosque and then delivered the first Friday sermon live to the whole world. In his sermon, Huzoor said that with His grace, God has enabled the Ahmadis of Brisbane and the Ahmadis of Australia to build a new mosque. We could not thank God enough for this favour. Huzoor said that it is important to be just and fair. God has made the community of believers as one entity. This standard will be upheld when each person is conscious of the pain of others, when justice and fairness is met.
इस मस्जिद के बनने से यहाँ रहने वाले अहमदियों की जिम्मेदारियाँ बढ़ गई हैं, और वो ये हैं कि इस मस्जिद को आबाद भी करना है उन्होंने, इसकी और उस ज़ीनत को लेकर आना है इस मस्जिद में जो खुदा ताला की नज़र में ज़ीनत है। ये भी ज़िम्मेदारी है आपकी, और एक दूसरे के हुकूक भी अदा करनी है, ये भी ज़िम्मेदारी है आपकी, और इलाके में हकीकी इस्लाम का पैगाम भी पहुंचाना है, ये भी ज़िम्मेदारी है आपकी।
Previously, a reception was held in celebration of the mosque, which was attended by many members of Parliament, the Queensland Police Commissioner, and many of the local mosque neighbours. Prior to the event, Huzoor met with a few local MPs, mayors and councilmen.
as a token or as a part of respect from my community, from my Yugambeh community, I'd love His Holiness to accept a gift on behalf of us. And it's actually a didgeridoo made by a local artist by the name of Uncle Joey Skeen. So if you could please accept that. With a didgeridoo, Aboriginal women aren't allowed to touch them or play them, so I've asked Mr Latta, the MP, to present it. So, yeah. I'll just finish off by saying, Jingi Wallu Wallu Jingi, welcome to Yugambeh country.
Whether it is the annual Clean Up Australia Day activities, Red Cross appeals, Biggest Morning Tea, Drumley Walk, or clean up from 2011 and 2013 floods, the Armidale community have a clear focus on helping their fellow man. When floodwaters tore a path through Logan City in January this year, more than 50 members of the Armidale community donned the rubber gloves and spent many days assisting in the clean-up effort. While families came to terms with the loss of their belongings, they were fortunate in that they could have the generous members of the community to lean on in their time of crisis.
So, Your Holiness, when you work under the creed or ethos or ideology of love for all and hatred for none, when you speak of peace and promote that message across the rest of the world, and you talk about service unto others, let me say that your message is alive and well in our community, and it is being spread every day through the actions of your faithful.
In his keynote address, Hazur reassured the local people that the new mosque would be a centre of peace. He said that true worship required high moral standards at all times, and he spoke of the humanitarian efforts made by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. Hazur said that worshipping at a mosque is rendered entirely meaningless if the people offering prayers did not treat their fellow human beings with love and compassion.
Indeed, God Almighty has said that the prayers of a person who does not follow His commands will prove to be a means of destruction for him. So I quoted some of the examples. There are numerous examples in the Holy Quran or in the teachings of Islam. The truth is that if the prayers of a Muslim do not lead him towards fulfilling the rights of mankind, his prayers cannot be classed as real worship. The founder of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has said, to show love and compassion and to be sympathetic to humanity is a huge form of worship and is an excellent means of gaining Allah's pleasure. Thus, true worship requires fulfilling the rights of mankind in an entirely selfless manner.
Before leaving Brisbane, Hazur visited a famous attraction known as Fruit World, an agricultural tourist attraction that grows over 500 different varieties of tropical and rare fruit. It is also an eco-tourist destination where fruit growing is blended with a native reserve of rainforest trails, landscaped waterways, and native animals. The plantation is situated on the rim of the largest extinct volcano in the Southern Hemisphere and offers breathtaking views of the Tweed Valley and McPherson Ranges. Upon arrival, Hazur was greeted by the park administration, who presented Hazur with a memento for his visit. Hazur was then given an exhibition by the Awuri-speaking people, the original land dwellers of Australia, who expressed their history, customs, and sacred totems through traditional song and dance. Each dance is in honour to an animal that a tribe would hold sacred, namely the bee, kangaroo, and the emu bird. Hazur was then taken on a personal tour of the park, where a guide showed Hazur the various fruits and plants grown around the plantation, some of which are very rare and extinct in other parts of the world. Hazur then affectionately interacted with the most famous animals in Australia, the kangaroo and wallaby. Kangaroos are large marsupials that are endemic to Australia. They have powerful hind legs and females have a pouch on their belly where joeys complete their postnatal development. After a whole blessed month, Hazur's historic tour of Australia had approached its end. On the 28th of October, Hazur departed for the next part of his journey. Hundreds of community members had taken time off work on a Monday morning just to bid farewell to their beloved Khalifa, who had spent such a long time with them. Many of the Khuddam had taken a whole month off work, some on unpaid leave, just to serve Jamaat during this time. Join us next week as we bring you Hazur's tour of New Zealand, including the historic meeting with the Maori king and the unveiling of the Holy Quran translation in Maori language. If you wish to catch up on any missed episodes, please go to www.ondemand.mta.tv to catch all episodes, as well as other MTA programs on your PC, tablet or smartphone. Some would argue that this planet's rich cultures and languages give each of us our own unique identity. But looking around, from cities to nations to continents, our world is shaping up to be one big neighborhood. For one group of people, there is but only one identity and one trait, one voice and one truth, one heartbeat and one God. And uniting this ever-flourishing family is one gardener, one keeper, spreading the seeds of spirituality and watering all with God's grace. One man who walks day and night to every corner of the world to embrace every beloved soul and gather all of God's seeds. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V, the successor to the promised Messiah ﷺ, and source of the same light as the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now visiting the far east of our small world once again. Join us in this special series for the incredible journey of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih to the nations of Singapore, Australia and New Zealand. And let us bring you closer to the far side of the world. In the previous episode, we showed you the reception held in Hazur's honour in Sydney, the opening of the Badal Masroor Mosque, Hazur's visit to Brisbane and his departure from Australia. The Maori believed that this land was fished out from the darkest depths of the ocean, stone and water in a mighty clash of the elements, giving birth to a raw land. Without the presence of God, faith is as angry and chaotic as this land. But turning only briefly to one's creator can bring flowers from the hardest of stones. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih comes to New Zealand to bring life once more to our faith. Hazrat Khalifatul Masih arrived in New Zealand on the 28th of October, where he was welcomed by the National Amila of New Zealand at the airport. Afterwards, Hazur was received by hundreds of eagerly waiting community members at the newly built Baitul Maqit Mosque. After arrival, Hazur made a brief inspection of the mosque and led the first prayers, the Maghrib and Isha Salat. The next day, a unique event took place. For the first time ever, the Maori king, His Majesty Tuheta Paki, invited a religious leader, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih V, to the sacred marae called Tarangawewe at Ngarawahia, where he was given the honor of a traditional welcome in the presence of the tribe elders and the king. The welcoming ceremony began traditionally with a Maori warrior checking to see if the visitors had come in peace or if they had aggressive intentions. The Maori warrior then led Hazrat Khalifatul Masih and his entourage to the marae, or traditional Maori meeting place. The traditions of the native Maori people revolve around the village community, and everyone is included in the upkeep and maintenance of the land and its inhabitants. Children play a major role in this, and rather like the Nasrat and Atfal of Ahmadiyya Muslim community, are trained to carry out duties of their own from an early age. Jamaat members were seated on one side of the meeting area, while the king and his people were sat on the opposite side. Hazur was honored by the Maori by being seated at the head of the congregation. As people settled, a Maori elder rose and began addressing the congregation in the native Maori tongue.
E noho nei I te mahau o tō tupuna whare, ia mahi nārangi. Nō reire e totoro nei garinga, o te ao Māori ki tō manu whiri, ki te kōtuku rerenga tahi kua tā mai I tēnei rā. Your Holiness, in 1889 was a time of deprivation, of chaos in this country for our people. It was a time when in our tribal lands that were completely and totally confiscated by the Crown, at a time when the government held control over the country that we call home. It was also a time when the second Māori king turned to his own faith, to the Pai Mārire movement for spiritual strength and for guidance. Today is an auspicious and important occasion. We salute you and accord you with our deepest respect in the presence of our King, the head of state of the Kingitanga, the King movement, founded in 1858. Your Holiness, we record for all time our respect. Your Holiness, there are many things that you have done, not only for your people, but for the millions of your followers around the world. That here in this country and through our parts of the world, the Muslim faith is subject to distortion, to misinterpretation, and to unfounded confusion. And I know that in your own way, that the singular most important thing in your faith is to love people. And for that, Your Holiness, we welcome you to this celebrated marae of Tūranga Wāwai, to the footstool of the tribes around this country, and in the presence of Kingi Tuheitia. We accord you with the special ceremony that you were given this morning as a mark of your chiefly status and a mark as an expression of your greatly endowed position as leader of Amaria and of the Muslim faith. Welcome, Your Holiness, to this hallowed ground, that the sacred waters of our ancestral river Waikato, that the sacred burial ground that you drove past this morning beckon to each and every one of you, welcome, welcome, thrice welcome. We join with you in farewelling those who have gone beyond the veil, as we have lost many dear ones in this unfinished year. We say to you that there is only but one belief, and that is that we must work together for the benefit of all people. That is the dictum of our King, is the reason why he has opened his arms and welcomed you here today. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Your Holiness, tēnā no tātou katoa, kahuri, e te King.
After a brief introduction, Mr. Shakil Munir, who undertook the project of the Maori translation of the Holy Quran, replied on behalf of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. He began with the recitation of the opening verses of Surah Fatiha, along with Maori translation. Originally from Pakistan, Mr. Munir lived in Ghana for much of his life and took the time to learn the Maori language initially through a Maori dictionary and phrasebook. The project ultimately took more than 25 years to complete and culminated into this divinely guided event.
Heather
After an exchange of gifts, Hazur and His Majesty met privately while the rest of the Jamaat had the opportunity to meet the Maori community. This was initiated through hongi, which is the touching of two noses, a traditional Maori greeting. This signified that the members of the Jamaat were no longer guests, but had now become one of the people of the land. After the private meeting, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih officially presented the Holy Quran with Maori translation to the king, and spoke of the reverence given to the Holy Quran and the wealth of knowledge contained in it.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the gracious, ever merciful. First of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the King who has received me here and received me in their traditional way and showed all his customs and welcomed me. That is a marvelous reception I have ever had. Thank you very much for that. And the Quran, the holy book of Muslims, which I have presented to the king, that is according to our belief, is the final law-bearing book which was revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the book is full of wisdom and giving the guidelines to the mankind. How should we develop relation with our Creator, and how should we behave towards our fellow being? Because in these days, world needs love, peace, and harmony, and reconciliation. And that is the message which has been given to us in this holy book. And we Ahmadis, who are the followers of the promised Messiah Islam, who was long awaited, we believe that that person has come in the person of Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian, and he is the founder of Ahmadiyya community. And he came to revive Islam and to bring us the true teachings of Islam, which were forgotten for a long time. So now the translation of the Holy Quran gives the true pictures in very many languages of the world of the true teachings of Allah, who has revealed this book to the Prophet of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I pray that this first visit here will last forever, and the friendship, hands of friendship which were extended by both of us will work forever, inshallah. And with these words, I again thank the King and the Queen and everybody here, especially the King who has received me and showed very kind gesture towards me. Thank you very much.
Ki te whakarewa I te puka tapu a te whakapono Muslim I roto I te reo Māori, anei ngā whakamahuki.
The meeting at the marae was one of significant importance and interest. This was the first time a religious leader was invited to the marae. The national media was there to cover the event, including Maori television, which did a special report on the event. On the 31st of October, Hazur held classes with young members of Atfal and Khuddam and Nasrat and Lajna. Hazur advised the children on various matters of their life, including their education and interactions in society, guiding them to display the best and live their lives in accordance to Islamic values. On the 1st of November, Hazur officially inaugurated the 25th Annual Convention, or Jalsa Salana of New Zealand, and also inaugurated the newly built Batul Muqit Mosque. The mosque has been built next to a pre-existing mission house and houses roughly 600 worshippers. The mosque, as with all other mosques built around the world, was built with great financial sacrifice of local community members. Hazur's Friday sermon was also centered around the building of mosques, saying that he often mentions that the stance of the Jamaat in financial sacrifice is very high. However, there is a great need to pay attention to Salat. Mosques should be populated for true observance of Salat. Salat is meant to be offered in congregation in a mosque, and a mosque is built for this very purpose. God states that a true believer is more concerned about the hereafter than this world. Hazur also congratulated the community on the building of a beautiful mosque by a small community of just 400 members. Hazur prayed that may this mosque become small for the New Zealand community very soon, inshallah.
Allah Ta'ala ने ये नहीं कहा कि दुनिया के काम ना करो, बल्कि अल्लाह ताला तो फरमाता है तुम्हें अल्लाह ताला की याद नहीं भूलनी चाहिए। ये ना हो कि तुम दुनियावी कारोबारों की वजह से अपनी नमाज़ें भी ज़ाया कर दो और अपने मकसद पैदाइश को भूल जाओ। हज़रत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम ने एक जगह फरमाया कि अगर ऐसा है कि तुम नमाज़ें भूल रहे हो, दुनिया में डूबे हुए हो, तो फिर तुम्हारे में और गैर में क्या फ़र्क है? क्या फ़ायदा है इस बैत का? बस इस फ़र्क को वादे करके बताना हमारी ज़िम्मेदारी है। अगर हम अपने आप को हज़रत मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम की बैत में शामिल समझते हैं तो ये वादे करना होगा।
The Ahmadiyya Muslim community may have just 400 members, but it's the proud owner of the largest purpose-built mosque in the country. Nicole Bremner reports.
Crisp white and sparkling new, all this mosque needed was an official opening. Cue the arrival of Hadrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, global leader of the Ahmadiyya Muslim community.
The opening of the mosque was a key event in New Zealand, which brought considerable attention from media. TV New Zealand made a special report for their One News program and also interviewed Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, where Hazur said that everyone is welcome to the mosque for the worship of the one God, whatever religion they may be. Hazur also said that he wished and prayed that this mosque will become very small for the community soon, so that other mosques are built all around New Zealand.
Is it your hope that more people will come if it's open to everybody, that more New Zealanders will come?
Yes, if they wish, they can come. It's open for everybody. If they are praying to Allah, so all the religions came from, according to my belief, all religions came from the God, from Allah, right? So if all the religions are from Allah, then, and we are the creation of Allah, then how can we stop anybody to come and worship his creator or her creator?
You've made a connection with our Māori people, our Indigenous people, through the translation of the Quran into Māori. Do you know anything about that or the significance of that?
You see, the only significance I know is that we should translate the Holy Quran into every language. And up till now, we have translated the Holy Quran into 72 languages. So as the Bible has been translated into so many languages, we think that Quran should also be translated because it was revealed to the Holy Prophet of Islam by Allah that it is written in the Quran that announce, O people of the world, I am the Prophet to you all. So if he is the Prophet for the whole of mankind, then there are, 101 languages or numerous languages spoken in the world. So we have to take this message to each and every person, and it cannot be taken if they don't understand the message. And nobody knows Arabic, so this is why we are trying to translate the Holy Quran into various languages of the world.
The next day, a reception was held in Hazur's honor, celebrating the launch of the Maori translation of the Holy Quran and the opening of the Baitul Maqid Mosque. The event was attended by 150 distinguished guests, including members of parliament, foreign consul generals, faith leaders, councilmen, barristers, more than 15 kaumatuas, and His Majesty, the Maori King Tuheta Paki. Before Hazur's keynote address, various guests spoke.
I've listened with great interest to the speeches which have been made by those before me. I fully endorse the comments which are made. I think all of us here will support this mosque, this community, and the growth of the Islamic religion and culture in this country.
In his keynote address, Hazur spoke of the peaceful message of Islam and the urgent need of justice and equality in the world.
Islam says that a true worshipper of God who fulfills his rights must also always fulfill the rights of man. Where on the one hand, a Muslim comes to the mosque to fulfill the rights of worship, he should also enter the mosque to consider and devise ways of how he can express his love and sympathy for mankind. It is for this reason that the Ahmadiyya Muslim community undertakes various charitable activities, including charity walks, and supports the work of a number of external charities. Within our mosque, financial appeals are regularly made in which the Ahmadis are asked to make financial sacrifices for the sake of helping orphans and poor people in desperate need.
After the event, the Maori King accompanied Hazur on a brief tour of the mosque. Before his departure, the Maori King made his gesture of complete friendship and respect to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih through hongi, his traditional greeting.
He explained a lot of things that I was a bit mysterious about, and he opened up the faith a lot more than you see in the news media, which is wonderful. Now, I don't think you guys are so secretive and mysterious. You're just like me, you and me. This has got to be unique in New Zealand history. So it should be out there with the public, with the news media, the television.
The same day, Hazur addressed the female members, or Lajna, on the second day of the New Zealand Jalsa Salana, where he instructed both men and women on their rights towards each other and their children, and reminded all of their duties towards their faith and community.
Indeed, women can and should play a full and wonderful role in today's jihad. In the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, we normally find that our girls and women are more educated than our men. And I expect that the same is probably true here in New Zealand. Thus, utilize your intelligence to attain as much religious knowledge as possible, and then use that knowledge to spread the true message of Islam and to do tabligh.
The next day, Hazur addressed the concluding session of the New Zealand Jalsa Salana.
If you advance in the field of tabligh, you can bring about a revolution. You will, inshallah, be able to save yourselves, save your future generations, and save your nation as well. So understand well your responsibilities. May Allah enable every Ahmadi man and every Ahmadi woman, every old and every young, to understand your responsibilities and to make progress in good works. Do not do anything which is not in the interest of the Jamaat and for its good, and which is not good for the nation and which is against the well-being of the people.
After the concluding session, Hazur held the Bai'at ceremony, or initiation into Islam Ahmadiyyat. The Bai'at is a tradition dating from the time of Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is a pledge and affirmation of your faith, commitment and service to Islam and Khilafat under the 10 conditions of initiation set out by the promised Messiah alayhi salam. This was also an opportunity for all members of the community to renew their pledge to Islam Ahmadiyyat through the leadership of Khilafat, a process which is incredibly spiritual and life-changing for many. On his last day in New Zealand, Hazur made a brief trip to Wellington, the capital city of New Zealand, and just like he did at the UK Houses of Parliament, the US Capitol Hill, and European Parliament, Hazur addressed members of the New Zealand government at the Parliament buildings in the Grand Hall of the Parliament House. Attending the event were members of Parliament, city councilmen, professors, police commissioners, and many foreign generals, high commissioners and ambassadors, including the ambassador for Israel and Iran, and representatives from the British and Cuban High Commission. The event was arranged by Honourable Kanwaljit Singh Bakshi MP. In his keynote address, Hazur urged all leaders present to do their utmost to reduce suffering and injustice in the world. Hazur brought attention to the devastating effects of a nuclear war and how current world dynamics could lead to an unthinkable destruction and loss of life if the world did not come together and adopted measures of peace and absolute justice. Hazur also spoke of the situation in Syria and how measures must be taken by world leaders to avoid a foreign military intervention.
Certainly, it is a requirement of loving one's nation that if it is ever attacked, it is the duty of a citizen to be ready to give every sacrifice for its defense and to liberate the nation. Nevertheless, if the conflict can be resolved in a cordial or peaceful way through negotiations and diplomacy, then one should not needlessly invite death and killings. In olden times, when wars took place, there were mainly military casualties with a very minimum civilian loss. However, the means of today's wars include aerial bombardment, poison gas, and even chemical weapons. And as I said, there is also the potential use of the most horrific weapon of all, the nuclear bomb. Consequently, the wars of today are entirely different to those of the past. Because today wars could potentially wipe mankind from the face of the earth. Let me at this point present a beautiful teaching of the Holy Quran regarding the establishment of peace. The Quran says, "And good and evil are not alike. Repel evil with that which is best. And lo, he between whom and thyself was enmity will become as though he were a warm friend." Thus, the Quran teaches that as far as possible, any enmities or grudges should be reconciled and solved by opening the channels of communication and through dialogue.
I have been working with the Ahmadiyya community for almost last 10 years, and I have always found that the main aim of this organization has been to bring peace and work with the interfaith council and different religions.
I think that it was a very important message, and I think that it is a message that can be welcomed and accepted by everyone. We're talking about peace, and who can oppose peace? And I think that the message that he had spoken, the perspective that he has given is extremely important. And of course, the way that he condemns violence is extremely important for all of us, all over the world, who have seen violence, who have suffered from violence. And all I can say is make a wish that his wisdom, his message will really become a reality. The sooner the better.
Well, I think peace is everybody's business. A lack of peace in one part of the world means that the world is an unhappy place. And if we are to address peace in one part of the world, then we have to address the same situation elsewhere as well. I think that's the message I'll take. The second one is the symbolism of him being here. I think that's quite important.
Well, it was very inspirational. I came here not really knowing what to expect. I knew a little bit about His Holiness and the message he has, but I found it very inspirational. It was great to join a number of people from New Zealand across various communities, to meet some people from Britain as well, which was great, and to hear a message which I found really inspirational. It's a real message that needs to get out to people in this world of ours today.
Join us next week for our last episode as we bring you Huzoor's visit to the land of the sun and his activities in Japan. If you wish to catch up on any missed episodes, please go to www.ondemand.mta.tv to catch all episodes, as well as other MTA programs on your PC, tablet or smartphone. Some would argue that this planet's rich cultures and languages give each of us our own unique identity. But looking around, from cities to nations to continents, our world is shaping up to be one big neighborhood. For one group of people, there is but only one identity and one trait, one voice and one truth, one heartbeat and one God. And uniting this ever-flourishing family is one gardener, one keeper, spreading the seeds of spirituality and watering all with God's grace. One man who walks day and night to every corner of the world to embrace every beloved soul and gather all of God's seeds. Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, Khalifatul Masih V, the successor to the promised Messiah ﷺ, and source of the same light as the Holy Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, now visiting the far east of our small world once again. Join us in this special series on the incredible journey of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih to the nations of Singapore, Australia, New Zealand and Japan, and let us bring you closer to the far side of the world. In the previous episode, we brought you Huzoor's blessed tour of New Zealand, including the historic meeting with the Maori king and the completion of the Maori translation of the Holy Quran, the inauguration of the first mosque in New Zealand, and Huzoor's historic address at the New Zealand Houses of Parliament.
Wadae haq jaane millat ay amirul mu'minin.
Thousands of faithful had their prayers answered. Walking amongst them, embracing them, guiding them, was Khalifatul Masih. For many weeks, the leader of the faithful has travelled across continents and met thousands of his people, changing lives and thoughts. He spread his word to all, spoken in the halls of government. Even kings have sought his blessings. Now his blessed journey was coming to a close, and the last stop was Japan. Huzoor arrived in Japan on the 5th of November, where he was greeted by community members in Tokyo.
Ya Amirul Mu'minin, marhaba khush aamadi. Ya Amirul Mu'minin, marhaba khush aamadi. Ya Amirul Mu'minin, ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba. Ya खिलाफत का ये इस्तिआरा खलीफा के हम हैं खलीफा हमारा.
The next day, Hazur departed on his journey to Nagoya. Along the way, Hazur stopped to admire one of the most majestic landscapes in East Asia, Mount Fuji. Standing above 12,000 feet, the mountain is a perfectly symmetrical volcanic cone and is a near-mythical national symbol immortalized in countless works of art. The mountain has been thought of as sacred since ancient times, and the legendary Japanese samurai would even train at the base of the mountain. In Nagoya, Hazur was received by the local Ahmadiyya Muslim community at the national headquarters, where Hazur led the Maghrib and Isha Salat. The current headquarters is just a house, and recently the community had the blessing of purchasing a new building in Nagoya, which will serve as the new headquarters. On Thursday, Hazrat Khalifatul Masih held classes with Waqfino boys and girls. In the sessions, Hazur guided and instructed the children on various matters concerning their education and future, and advised them on their conduct and practices in life to be those of a true Muslim. On Friday the 8th of November, Hazur led the Friday sermon in Nagoya, where he congratulated the community on the purchase of a new centre, which was procured through great financial sacrifice by the local Ahmadi Muslims. Speaking on this theme, Hazur said that no doubt sacrifices and actions, owing to short-term enthusiasm at times, incline one towards piety. If these are for the sake of God, then one is bestowed with divine grace. However, the objectives of those of us who have taken the path of the promised Messiah ﷺ will be fulfilled in the real sense when we endeavour to make each act of ours consistent in seeking the pleasure of God, and will keep the objective of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat in view at all times.
हज़रत मसीह मौऊद अलैहिस्सलाम फरमाते हैं कि मैं अपनी जमात के अफराद को इसी तरह तरक्की की मनाज़िल तय करता देखना चाहता हूँ, जिससे वो अपने मकसद पैदाइश को हासिल करके फिर इसके मदारज में तरक्की करते चले जाएं, उनके दर्जे बुलंद होते चले जाएं और अल्लाह ताला के इनामात के हासिल करने वाले वो बनते चले जाएं। आपने फरमाया कि मेरी जमात में ऐसे लोग हों जो कुरान करीम और आन हज़रत सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की अज़मत पर बतौर गवाह ठहरें।
The arrival of a prominent religious leader brought attention from the press, and the same day, one of the largest newspapers in Japan, the Asahi Shimbun, interviewed Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. In the interview, Hazur spoke of the international Ahmadiyya Muslim community, his duties as the leader of tens of millions of followers, and the establishment of the Ahmadiyya city in Pakistan called Rabwa.
ラブワという町は例えば何もなかったところにアハマディアの人たちが作り上げた町なんですかラブワは。
हाँ बिल्कुल बैरन जगह थी और हुकूमत ने भी उसको छोड़ा हुआ था और वहाँ पानी भी नहीं निकलता था। जब पार्टीशन हुई है, इंडो पाकिस्तान बना है, तो उस वक्त जब जमात अहमदिया को अपना मरकज़ कायम करने के लिए जगह की तलाश थी, फिर हज़रत खलीफत मसीह सानी ने मुख्तलिफ़ जगहों में तलाश करवाई और उसमें से ये जगह उनको पसंद आई, लेकिन वहाँ पानी का मसला था, तो वो भी अल्लाह ताला ने आप फिर रहे थे तो अल्लाह ताला ने एक जगह इशारा फरमाया, इल्हामन फरमाया कि इस जगह पानी है, और फिर वहाँ पहले उससे पहले बोर होल बहुत सारे किए गए थे, पानी नहीं निकलता था। जब उस ख़ास जगह पे बोर किया गया तो वहाँ अल्लाह के फजल से मीठा पानी निकल आया और फिर रबा की बादी वहाँ फैलनी शुरू हुई कि पार्टीशन के बाद मुसलमान की हैसियत से हम पाकिस्तान गए। पाकिस्तान के बनाने में, रबा के बनाने में अहमदियों का खून शामिल है और एक मोहब्बत है हमें उस मिट्टी से। ज़ाहिर है अगर निकले हैं तो मजबूरी से निकले हैं और इंशाअल्लाह ताला जब मौका मिलेगा तो वापस जाएंगे भी और जो वापस अहमदी वहाँ रहते हैं वो इसलिए रहते हैं कि उनको उस मिट्टी से मोहब्बत है अगर कोई मजबूरी नहीं है ऐसी कि ज़रूर बाहर निकलना है तो बाहर कुर्बानी करते हैं और रहते हैं वहाँ.
In the evening, Hazur visited the newly purchased Ahmadiyya Center in Nagoya and led the Maghrib and Isha prayers. There are plans to convert the building to a mosque in the future, which will have the capacity for up to 800 worshippers. Upon completion, it will inshallah be Japan's largest mosque. Hazur inspected various areas and infrastructures of the building and gave guidance to the Executive Council members. A small dinner was held afterwards, which was also attended by Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. The next day, a reception was held in Hazur's honor in Nagoya, which was attended by over 150 influential dignitaries and guests, which included many members of parliament, faith leaders, lawyers, professors, and city mayors. A few of the guests spoke at the event.
At the
time of the tsunami, you helped us a lot, and so firstly, I would like to thank you all. It had been 5 days since the tsunami on the 16th of March, when the president of the Japanese branch of the Ahmadiyya community, Mr. Anis Ahmed Nadim and Ayaz Najbullah, came to a shelter in an elementary school. After the disaster, within 14 minutes until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, these people, the Ahmadiyya community in Japan, took the immediate initiative to help in order to help these affected areas. These volunteers had indeed demonstrated their commitment through their actions. Each day we would observe and think to ourselves how committed and devoted these volunteers actually were. Their manner was not forceful or overbearing. Instead, they dealt with us in a friendly manner with much love. The manner in which they conducted themselves, we could tell, was anything but ordinary.
In 1951, when the Treaty of San Francisco was signed, Sir Zafarullah Khan Sahib delivered a speech. At the time, he was the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, a very devout member of the Ahmadiyya community. He said, "We must establish peace in Japan with equality and justice, not with hatred and vengeance." In this manner, he safeguarded the Japanese stance. We must always keep in mind the spirit of Mr. Khan's speech. As far as the wider international relations are concerned, a part of which is refugee recognition, there is a need to honestly act upon this speech. You just heard the report of the beautiful services rendered by Humanity First following the first tsunami. As a Japanese, I wish to express my heartfelt gratitude and thankfulness.
The need of the time is for us to step forward with a spirit of reconciliation, because if we do not become true ambassadors of peace, a great calamity could easily befall the world. Today, even a number of smaller nations have come to possess nuclear weapons, and it is quite possible that they could eventually end up in the hands of extremists who do not care or realize what devastation can be caused by such weapons. As I said, I am trying to make the world aware of the grave risks that exist, and so I request all of you to also try your utmost to promote peace in the world. We should make all parties aware that rather than treading a path of cruelty and severity, and rather than looking at each other through a lens of hatred, we should all look at one another through a lens of love and peace.
我々は日本人としてイスラム教というのはいろんな情報が入ってますね。
Today, when I got to know more about this unique community and the work you do for humanity, I came to the conclusion that this is indeed a very revered religion. I felt that this is that mighty leadership for the new era.
His Holiness said that in order to spread peace, we should examine our state of affairs first. This point most definitely struck the hearts of all the listeners. Today, when I heard His Holiness speak, regardless of the difference in speech, I got this impression that he is a very tender-hearted and enthusiastic person, and his knowledge encompasses various languages, cultures, and history. This is what I noticed.
His message is almost always of peace. But this time, when various incidents of the Holy Prophet were narrated, I thought that you Ahmadis must belong to the same category of people who did Hijrat. Ahmadis span all over the world and help different people, and they meet non-Muslims like us, sharing the message of peace. I was very surprised at first when I saw you because of your unity. I was amazed at this because this cannot be found in other Muslims.
His Holiness's speech was amazing and it was brimming with faith and conviction. If this speech was not delivered with this context, it would not have struck the hearts.
On the 11th of November, Hazur made his journey to Tokyo from Nagoya on a Japanese bullet train. The Shinkansen bullet train network is the busiest in the world and one of the most efficient. These trains travel at speeds of up to 320 kilometers per hour. The journey to Tokyo, which would have taken 4 hours, only took 1 hour. The same evening, a major Q&A session was held with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih in Tokyo, attended by ministers, members of parliament, corporate leaders, and members of press. This was a unique opportunity for the Japanese people to discover the real truth about Islam firsthand from Hazrat Khalifatul Masih directly.
兄さん、後の方の質問ですが、あなたがしてほしいことを他人にもしなさいという、道徳のような黄金律ですね。これはクルアンではどのように表現されているか、そういう教えがあるのかどうかということを。
इस्लाम का भी यही सुनहरी असूल है कि जो अपने लिए पसंद करते हो वो तुम उसमें, बल्कि मसीह मौद अलैहिस्सलाम ने इस हद तक लिखा है कि दूसरे का दर्द तुम उस तरह ही महसूस करो जिस तरह अपना दर्द महसूस करते हो, तभी तुम इंसानियत की सही खिदमत कर सकते हो। और इस्लाम के इसी असूल के तहत कि जो तुम अपने लिए पसंद करते हो दूसरे के लिए पसंद करो, हम तबलीग का काम करते हैं ताकि वो चीज़ जिसको हम सही समझते हैं और उस पर अमल करते हैं और समझते हैं कि इससे खुदा ताला का कुर्ब हासिल होता है, वो दूसरों को मिले। यही नसीहत है जिसके ज़ेर असर हमारी तबलीग भी है कि जो चीज़ हम अपने लिए पसंद करें वो दूसरे के लिए भी करें। और इन्हीं सब बातों का खुलासा है कि जो हमारा ये नारा है कि मोहब्बत सबके लिए और नफ़रत किसी से नहीं।
いやもう横でね話を聞いてましたけど、最高指導者がですねその表情を変えずにですね、もう次から次へさらさらともう縦板に水を流すごとくもう情報がザーッと出ていくわけですよね。さすがだなと思いましたね。その喋ることが止まることなくね、滑らかにさーっとその表情も変えず優しくね。やっぱりすごいなと思いましたね。またぜひこういう機会をまたあればぜひ参加していただきたいですね。そうですね。もう本当にね、人間のパワーというかオーラというか包容力というかね、それを本当に横でつくづく感じましたね。ぜひ世界平和のために頑張っていただきたいですね。はい。
はい。一番最後にですね政教分離の話がありましたけれども、本当にやはりそういうなんていうのかな、こう民衆主義とかそういうやっぱりこう、政治と宗教はこう分けて考えて、そしてやはりその宗教活動の自由というものを重んじる宗教であるということが初めて分かりました。今日の最高指導者の方の話を聞いて、よく分かるようになりました。はい。モハマド・サブケリエ、ナフラト・キシ・セナヒン。
On his last day in Japan, Hazur made a brief visit to Asakusa Nakamise, the Sensoji temple in the heart of Tokyo, and the surrounding traditional shops that have attracted shoppers for centuries. But as it turns out, the main attraction that day was not any ancient building, but the blessed personage of Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. People swarmed Hazur every few steps and shook his hand. many requesting to have a picture taken with Hazur. This was reflective of Hazur's entire tour of the Far East. Wherever he went, Hazur attracted the faithful and the rest of the world.
तख्त मेहदी के वारिस इमाम ज़मा तख्त मेहदी के वारिस इमाम ज़मा सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा हमने बहरे खुदा तेरी बैत जो की तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए बरक़ रूहानियत की अजब रो चली शब गज़ीदों को फिर रोशनी मिल गई किरमज़ी शब हुई दिन हरे हो गए किरमज़ी शब हुई दिन हरे हो गए सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तेरी मुस्कान की फार दिल पर गिरी गुलशने जाम बादे सबा चल पड़ी प्यार में तेरे मन बावरे हो गए प्यार में तेरे मन बावरे हो गए प्यार में तेरे मन बावरे हो गए सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए जिंदगी तेरे दम से बदलने लगी इश्क ताजा हुआ जान संभलने लगी जिंदगी तेरे दम से बदलने लगी इश्क ताजा हुआ जान संभलने लगी खोटे सिक्के थे लेकिन खरे हो गए खोटे सिक्के थे लेकिन खरे हो गए सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए लफ्ज सब हैं पुराने कहानी नई आँख के पानियों की रवानी नई रूह के रंग ही दूसरे हो गए रूह के रंग ही दूसरे हो गए सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए ऐ मसीहा नफस ऐ महे दिल बरा ऐ मसीहा नफस ऐ महे दिल बरा तख्त मेहदी के वारिस इमाम ज़मा तख्त मेहदी के वारिस इमाम ज़मा सैयदी मुशफ़िक़ी मुर्शिदी मेहरबा हमने बहरे खुदा तेरी बैत जो की तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए तू हमारा हुआ हम तेरे हो गए
We hope you enjoy the journey to the Far East with Hazrat Khalifatul Masih. You can watch this and all other previous episodes at any time on www.ondemand.mta.tv on your smartphone, tablet, or PC.